The text message arrived during my quarterly board meeting. Can't make dinner tonight. Emergency client situation requiring immediate attention. Love you, babe. The same excuse Daniel had used 17 times in the past 6 months. Always sent precisely when he thought I'd be too busy to respond immediately. My name is Samantha Reid, and for 12 years, I'd been building what Forbes called the most innovative consulting firm in corporate America. Reid Strategic Solutions specialized in hostile takeover negotiations and crisis management for Fortune 500 companies, which meant I'd spent my career learning exactly how to leverage information, manipulate outcomes, and negotiate from positions of strength. What Daniel didn't know was that his emergency client situations had been investigated, documented, and analyzed with the same thoroughness I applied to billion-dollar acquisitions. His affair wasn't just a betrayal. It was a business opportunity that would demonstrate exactly why you should never lie to someone who negotiates for a living. Daniel thought he was managing a secret relationship while keeping his marriage intact. What he'd actually done was provide me with perfect leverage for the most profitable negotiation of my career, one where I'd sell him the truth about his situation at a price that would change both our lives forever. Picture this: a penthouse overlooking Manhattan's financial district, where I'd review acquisition targets over coffee while Daniel prepared for his day managing high-net-worth investment portfolios. We were the power couple everyone admired, successful CEO and talented financial advisor who'd built complementary empires while maintaining what appeared to be a perfect marriage. Reid Strategic Solutions had built its reputation on transforming corporate disasters into profitable opportunities. When companies faced hostile takeovers, regulatory crises, or leadership scandals, they called me to negotiate outcomes that protected shareholder value while minimizing long-term damage. Mr. Harrison, your board is facing a choice between immediate disclosure and strategic narrative management. Based on my analysis, controlled information release will minimize stock volatility while positioning the company for post-crisis growth. My expertise was understanding how information flowed, how leverage shifted, and how to structure deals that appeared beneficial to all parties while actually maximizing outcomes for my clients. Negotiation wasn't just my profession, it was my art form. I love watching you work, Daniel would tell me over dinner at restaurants where CEOs discussed merger strategies at neighboring tables. The way you analyze complex situations and find solutions nobody else sees, you're brilliant at turning problems into opportunities. If only he'd realized he was about to become my most interesting case study. Daniel's investment advisory firm specialized in wealth management for tech entrepreneurs and entertainment industry executives. His client list included startup founders, film producers, and venture capitalists who valued both his financial expertise and his discretion about their often complicated personal situations. "We make a good team," Daniel would say when we discussed our complementary businesses. "You handle corporate crises, I handle personal wealth protection. Between us, we understand every aspect of how successful people manage risk." He was right about understanding risk management, more right than he realized. The first inconsistency appeared 8 months ago when Daniel started working late on deals that didn't align with his usual client patterns. Investment advisory work rarely required evening meetings, yet Daniel was suddenly unavailable 3 nights per week for urgent portfolio reviews and crisis wealth protection strategies. But here's the thing about being a corporate crisis consultant. You develop instincts about when narratives don't match underlying realities. When someone's behavior patterns change dramatically, you start applying the same analytical frameworks you use for corporate investigations. I started with basic pattern analysis. Daniel's late nights correlated perfectly with market closures, making urgent trading situations impossible. His weekend client emergencies occurred during timeframes when financial markets were completely inactive. Using the same due diligence techniques I employed for corporate acquisitions, I began mapping Daniel's actual activities versus his reported schedule. What I discovered wasn't just evidence of deception, it was evidence of systematic lies that had been carefully structured to manipulate my perception of his availability. Daniel thought he was managing a simple extramarital affair while maintaining marital stability. What he'd actually done was provide a corporate crisis consultant with the perfect case study in information asymmetry, leverage dynamics, and strategic negotiation. I wasn't going to confront Daniel about his lies. I was going to treat his affair like any other corporate crisis that required strategic management, optimal timing, and maximum value extraction for my client. In this case, myself. Any successful negotiation begins with comprehensive due diligence, understanding every aspect of the situation, identifying all stakeholders, and mapping potential leverage points before entering discussions. Daniel's affair would be analyzed with the same thoroughness I applied to billion-dollar acquisitions. I started with financial forensics, using the same techniques I employed when investigating corporate malfeasance for hostile takeover targets. Daniel's credit card statements, bank records, and expense reports painted a clear picture of systematic deception spanning 8 months. Hotel charges during his supposed client dinners, jewelry purchases that I'd never received, restaurant expenses for 2 at establishments he'd never taken me to, weekend trips charged to his business account while telling me he was attending investment conferences. But Daniel's financial trail was just the foundation of a much more complex operation. Using network analysis techniques I developed for corporate investigations, I began mapping his entire deception ecosystem. The breakthrough came when I cross-referenced Daniel's fabricated schedule with social media analytics and location data. His urgent client meetings corresponded perfectly with Instagram posts from someone named Jessica Martinez, a marketing director at a tech startup downtown. Jessica's online presence painted the picture of a woman living significantly above her apparent income level. Expensive restaurants, luxury shopping, weekend getaways that her startup salary couldn't support. Someone was subsidizing her lifestyle, and Daniel's expense reports showed exactly who that someone was. Using background investigation services I employed for corporate due diligence, I compiled a complete profile of Jessica Martinez. Professional history, educational background, financial status, social connections. Everything needed to understand her role in Daniel's deception and her vulnerability to strategic pressure. What I discovered was that Jessica wasn't just Daniel's mistress. She was a strategic liability who could destroy his professional reputation if their relationship became public. Many of Daniel's clients were conservative investors who valued traditional family values and moral integrity in their financial advisors. But the most valuable intelligence came from analyzing Daniel's client communications, which I had access to through our shared business management software. Several of his highest value clients had morality clauses in their advisory agreements that would allow immediate termination if their advisor engaged in conduct that reflected poorly on their professional judgment. Daniel thought he was having a discreet affair that wouldn't impact his business relationships. What he'd actually done was create massive professional liability while providing me with perfect leverage for extracting maximum value from the situation. I spent 6 weeks conducting due diligence that would have impressed any merger acquisition team. By the time I finished, I understood Daniel's affair better than he did, including consequences he'd never considered, and vulnerabilities he didn't know existed. Now it was time to structure the negotiation that would demonstrate exactly why you should never lie to someone who specializes in turning information asymmetries into profitable outcomes. The art of successful negotiation lies in controlling information flow, while allowing your counterpart to believe they understand the situation. Daniel had been managing our relationship like an amateur, thinking simple deception was sufficient. I was about to show him how professionals handle complex stakeholder management, For 2 months, I continued our regular routine while systematically positioning myself for optimal negotiation outcomes. Daniel had no idea that his secret affair had been investigated, analyzed, and valued like any other corporate asset I might acquire. Professional phone calls. During this positioning phase, I also strengthened my own leverage by securing several high-profile client wins that enhanced my professional reputation and financial independence. If I was going to negotiate Daniel's exit from our marriage, I wanted to do it from a position of maximum strength. The beauty of Daniel's situation was that he'd created multiple pressure points without realizing their interconnected vulnerabilities. His affair with Jessica violated professional boundaries that could destroy his client relationships. His financial deception constituted marital fraud that would impact any divorce settlement. His reputation in our social circle was built on false premises that could be exposed at any time. Using risk assessment models I'd developed for corporate crisis management, I calculated the potential costs Daniel would face if his affair became public through uncontrolled disclosure. Lost clients, divorce settlement, professional reputation damage, social ostracism. The total exceeded $2.3 million in direct costs, not including long-term earning impact. But uncontrolled disclosure wasn't my goal. I was a negotiation specialist who understood that optimal outcomes required careful timing, strategic positioning, and value-maximizing deal structures that appeared beneficial to all parties. That's when I identified the perfect leverage opportunity. Daniel had been pursuing a partnership opportunity with Morgan Stanley's private wealth management division, a career advancement that would triple his earning potential but required comprehensive background screening and moral character verification. Daniel's affair with Jessica, particularly the financial improprieties involved in supporting her lifestyle, would disqualify him from partnership consideration instantly. The same deception he thought was protecting our marriage was actually threatening his most important professional opportunity. I now had everything needed for the most profitable negotiation of my career. Daniel believed he was managing a secret affair while maintaining marital stability. What he'd actually done was create massive liability exposure while positioning me to extract optimal value through strategic information management. The time had come to schedule the most important business meeting of our marriage, one where I'd demonstrate exactly why successful negotiations require superior preparation, comprehensive due diligence, and the ability to leverage information asymmetries for maximum advantage. I scheduled our discussion for a Friday evening in my home office, the same space where I'd negotiated acquisitions worth billions of dollars. Daniel arrived expecting a normal dinner conversation, completely unaware that he was walking into the most important negotiation of his life. I'd prepared for this meeting with the same thoroughness I applied to hostile takeover negotiations. Every piece of evidence organized chronologically, every leverage point identified and quantified, every potential outcome modeled with risk-adjusted valuations. "You wanted to discuss something important?" Daniel asked, settling into the chair across from my desk. The same chair where opposing negotiators had realized they were outmatched by someone who'd done superior preparation. "Yes, I want to discuss a business proposition that I think you'll find very interesting." I opened the leather portfolio I'd prepared and slid the first document across my desk. It was a comprehensive summary of Daniel's affair with Jessica Martinez, formatted like the executive briefings I prepared for corporate clients. "This is an analysis of your extracurricular activities over the past 8 months," I explained in the same tone I used when presenting acquisition targets to board members. "Financial expenditures, time allocation, risk exposure, and potential liability assessment." "Samantha, I can explain. This isn't what it looks like." "Daniel, please. Let me finish my presentation before we discuss terms." I walked him through each section of my analysis with clinical precision. The financial fraud he'd committed by using joint assets to support Jessica's lifestyle. The professional liability he'd created by mixing personal relationships with client resources. The reputational risk that threatened his Morgan Stanley partnership opportunity. As you can see, your current situation presents significant downside exposure across multiple categories. However, I'm prepared to offer you a solution that minimizes your liability while protecting your professional opportunities. What do you want, Samantha? What are your terms? I slid a second document across the desk. A separation agreement I drafted with the same attention to detail I applied to merger contracts. I'm offering to purchase your exit from this marriage at a price that reflects the true value of avoiding the consequences your deception has created. In exchange for my discretion about your affair and my cooperation in maintaining your professional reputation, you'll agree to the financial terms outlined here. The agreement was generous by normal divorce standards, but punitive given the leverage I held. Daniel would retain his business and professional relationships, but I'd receive 70% of our joint assets plus ongoing financial considerations that reflected the value of my continued silence about his professional misconduct. Think of this as a non-disclosure agreement with financial considerations, I explained. You maintain your partnership opportunity with Morgan Stanley. Your client relationships remain intact, and your professional reputation stays protected. In exchange, you compensate me fairly for the management services I'm providing. You're essentially selling me my own reputation back. Exactly. And given the alternative cost you'd face through unmanaged disclosure, this represents exceptional value for the service I'm providing. Daniel signed the agreement at 11:23 p.m., after spending 3 hours trying to negotiate terms with someone who'd spent 12 years perfecting the art of extracting maximum value from positions of superior information and leverage. By midnight, I'd successfully negotiated the most profitable deal of my career, one where I'd sold Daniel the truth about his situation at a price that reflected its actual market value. 6 months after our negotiation concluded, I was sitting in my new corner office overlooking Central Park, reviewing the expansion plans for Reid Strategic Solutions' new division. Personal crisis management for high-net-worth individuals. Daniel's settlement had provided the capital for my most ambitious business expansion yet, a consulting service that helped wealthy individuals navigate personal scandals, family crises, and reputational challenges with the same strategic precision I'd applied to corporate situations. Miss Reid, this is Jennifer Walsh from Goldman Sachs. We have an executive facing a sensitive personal situation that could impact his professional standing. We've heard about your innovative approach to crisis management. The irony wasn't lost on me that Daniel's affair had provided both the case study and the funding for a business division that was already generating 7-figure revenue. His deception had become the foundation for my most profitable venture yet. Meanwhile, Daniel had successfully secured his Morgan Stanley partnership. His client relationships remained intact, and his professional reputation was unblemished. Our negotiation had delivered exactly what I'd promised: his career advancement in exchange for fair compensation for my strategic management services. The difference was that Daniel now understood exactly what professional-level negotiation looked like when conducted by someone who'd spent their career extracting maximum value from complex situations. He'd received a masterclass in strategic positioning, leverage utilization, and outcome optimization. I'd also begun dating again, specifically other professionals who understood negotiation, strategic thinking, and the value of transparent communication in complex relationships. No more amateur hour deception. I was interested in partners who could operate at my professional level. I have to ask, Michael Chen had said over dinner at Le Bernardin, how did you handle your divorce so strategically? Most people either fight bitterly or get taken advantage of by manipulative spouses. I realized that divorce negotiations are just another form of business transaction. Daniel tried to lie to someone who negotiates for a living, so I treated his affair like any other situation requiring strategic information management and optimal value extraction. The separation had been so amicable that our mutual friends often commented on our mature handling of irreconcilable differences. What they didn't know was that professional-level negotiation often produces outcomes that appear collaborative while actually maximizing advantage for the better-prepared party. 2 years after selling Daniel the truth about his affair, I was reviewing the annual performance metrics for my personal crisis management division while preparing for another Forbes interview about innovative consulting strategies. The business model I'd developed from Daniel's situation had revolutionized how wealthy individuals handled personal scandals. Instead of reactive damage control, my clients received proactive risk assessment and strategic narrative management that protected their professional interests while optimizing personal outcomes. Daniel's monthly consulting fees, as our settlement payments were structured for tax purposes, had funded expansion into 3 new markets and hired industry-leading crisis management specialists. His affair had literally capitalized my most successful business venture. I'd also been featured in Harvard Business Review for my innovative approach to personal relationship due diligence, a service that helped high-net-worth individuals investigate potential romantic partners before making significant emotional or financial commitments. Daniel had taught me that personal relationships could be analyzed, valued, and negotiated using the same frameworks I applied to corporate transactions. His deception had provided the perfect case study for demonstrating how superior preparation and strategic thinking could transform personal betrayal into professional opportunity. The man who'd tried to lie to a negotiation specialist had discovered exactly what happened when you attempted to manage information asymmetries against someone whose career was built on leveraging superior intelligence for optimal outcomes. Daniel had believed his lie would protect both his affair and our marriage. Instead, I'd sold him the truth about his situation at a price that reflected its actual market value and used the proceeds to build something far more valuable than what I'd lost. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's demonstrating superior professional capabilities while extracting maximum value from someone else's poor strategic decisions. I let him believe the lie until I was ready to sell him the truth. And trust me, I was exceptionally good at negotiating profitable outcomes from positions of superior information and leverage. After all, that's what I did for a living.